and welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and you can find me on Twitter at Bob McDonald. And joining me, of course, is my co-host Jimmy Lemke.
Jimmy Lemke at Panther U on Twitter, and also, other stuff.
Other stuff, yes. And you can find the podcast on Twitter at Horizon RT. And Jimmy, of course, this is the second part of our Fall Fan Forum. So without any delay, let's go ahead and reintroduce everybody. Phil, you're over at Cleveland State, and reintroduce yourself.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Phil.
Hello, Phil. We got Rick.
Chad Knodel.
Yeah,
So Chad Knodel can introduce himself and then go pack for the UP.
Yes, you got to go pack for the UP. Upper Peninsula of Michigan for those of you scoring at home.
Right. My name's Chad Knodel from the great University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, depending on who you talk to.
Okay. And then Christopher Boggs. Yeah, I know you got to get going because apparently there's a chicken dance going on at Oktoberfest.
That is correct. A naked chicken dance, and that's what I'd be into.
Oh,
so,
yeah, that's not negotiable. Get out of here.
Yeah, got to do that.
Representing Northern Kentucky did a great job in that first part, and we won't hesitate to. But yes, have a good time. It sounds like you already have, I guess.
Thanks, guys. Hey, good stuff. Really good stuff on that first episode.
All
Cheers.
Right. Yeah, appreciate joining us. Oh God, Rick Neaton over at Detroit Mercy. Please reintroduce yourself.
Hi, guys. Rick Neaton again. Obviously, Chick-fil-A is not sponsoring the chicken dance at Northern Kentucky.
It is not in a Sunday. It isn't, and not in that situation. Ricky Redinger, Wright State.
How are we doing, guys? Happy to be back again.
Jim Saro over at Green Bay.
Hey, Bob. Thanks again. It's Jim Saro at Jim Saro, and I just learned that the UP in IUPUI does not stand for Upper Peninsula, so I learned something today.
There you go. And last but not least, representing Oakland and the Grizz gang, I might add, Chris Cousineau.
Yep, thanks for having me, Bob. I'm a senior here at Oakland University, vice president of Grizz Gang, and I also play the alto saxophone in the pep band at all the basketball games.
Sick.
Yes. So when we last left off, we were talking about kind of the situations with all the teams. Rick, I wanted to talk to you talk specifically about the situation at Detroit Mercy as it relates to the APR ban. Which, by the way, since this is being broadcast probably the week of September 29th. May or may not be resolved by the NCAA. So the next 5-10 minutes of this might be complete crap complete lie for all we know. But regardless of how that situation plays out, we're not going to make any prognostications how that's going to happen because we don't want to turn out to look like chumps if it goes the other way. But how has that whole situation affected Detroit Mercy as a whole? In terms of the team, because I know it's already it can't be great having that cloud over still hanging over campus.
Well, we'd prefer not to have it hanging over campus.
Exactly.
But it's out of our control because of simply the way that the APR is calculated and the way that it was set up in the pre-transfer portal era. And so most people understand that it is a product of an unusually large number of transfers and the unique situation that the last two guys to transfer out in the summer of 2018 never enrolled at another school in the following scholastic year, even though they apparently signed letters of intent to play at a Division I school in Brooklyn.
Yes, LIU, I believe, because I think, yes. And by the way, the two people in question are Jack Ballantyne and Jermaine Jackson Jr. It's been all over the place. And it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because on verbal commits, when you look at their roster on verbal commits, Jack Ballantyne's name has been sitting on their roster for like a year now, which is so it's funny that he decided instead of just going straight to LIU, he just decided not to enroll in anything at all.
No, they went straight to Spire Academy in Northeastern Ohio.
They did,
and that is just one of those weird things in how the APR regulation is calculated. It's kind of like the weird thing that happened to Oakland a few years ago when Jalen Hayes had a good grade point average, but it wasn't enough in the particular major that he was in. And the NCAA apparently was trying to make him ineligible for an entire term or an entire year. And it was a rather screwy situation. Well,
I think
all we know is that the issue with us is not caused by abnormally low performance in the classroom. It's caused by a large number of transfers.
Yeah. I think Ballantyne. You mentioned Spire. You mentioned the Spire situation because Jermaine Jackson Sr. went to go coach them because they all wanted to be big ballers. Remember, because that was last year, and that was when LaMelo Ball and LeVar and that whole freaking clown show came to came to extreme northeastern Ohio. Jesus Christ, I'm glad that's over.
Where's Jermaine Jackson Jr. at nowadays? I went to high school with him.
That would be again. He also is at Long Island now too, right?
Supposedly, yes.
Okay.
He does indicate on his Twitter account that he is at LIU, although LIU has not released its roster either.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe we're engaged in a game of chicken with them. Who's going to release their roster first? But
we better hurry up. We're getting close to the start of the season.
We'll have our roster out this week. Davis has the viewpoint that the roster should be released close to the first day of official practice.
Gotcha.
That's
so theoretically, when we post the second episode, the rosters, because I know that a bunch of the other schools, I know a bunch of other flights, they haven't even taken pictures yet. So that makes perfect sense. I actually wanted to talk about that schedule, that non-conference schedule too, because basically Mike Davis pretty much loaded up on guarantee games, and wow, that has to be that looks like he's breaking in quite a bit of money on that.
Well, as the smallest member of the Horizon League with only 2,800 full-time undergrad students, we appreciate all the money that we can get.
There you go. I think and I know that's what that kind of follows his kind of MO as well, because he did a lot of that down in Texas Southern too. So that was one good part. That was one really key part of that, because I know buy games are a really big part of the mid-major the mid-major operations now, where to the point where there are stipulations in your contract now for some coaches that they have to generate a certain amount of money on guarantee games. Presumably Mike Davis has one of those. I know Dennis Gates, when he was hired at Cleveland State, has one of those as well.
Well, I don't know if he does, Bob, but his view is this: the Horizon League is a one-bid league.
Yes. If you're not first, you're last.
Your record isn't going to matter. You're not going to be seeded more than number 14 unless you upset a power team in your non-conference schedule. And therefore, what's the difference if we come in at 14, 15, or 16? What's the difference what our non-conference record is? We want to win the games, of course, but his aim is to win the Horizon League and to win it regularly.
Well, I'll tell you this. There have been a handful of 15s that have beaten 2s. There has been one 16 that's beaten a 1, And there have been a bunch of 14s that have beaten 3s.
Yes.
So, as somebody who has been at a school and has been around this conference for a long time, the thing that just bothers me is that we are now to the point where most, if not all of the schools are saying, okay, this is a one-bid league. Let's put everything together to win the conference tournament. Who cares about anything else? And that's exactly how this conference got to be crap in the first place. Is you had schools that never took the non-conference season seriously.
Well, that's a good question.
They would lose
Amen to that, Jimmy.
So
that is
and then
spot
they'd come
on.
into the conference season and they'd be great.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so bothersome to me because this is how we get caught down here in the 20 and below of the RPI. Like this is what happens to conferences that have potential. There are 7 schools in this conference who could win games in the NCAA tournament. Green Bay has won, Cleveland State has won, Milwaukee has won, Detroit has won. Go down the list. Cleveland State. There's so many schools that have won NCAA tournament games, and some a couple of them were doing it in Division II, but that's just because they just haven't been up in Division I long enough. We can do it, but we can't do it if everybody looks at the non-conference season as a way to get paid, and not a way to build up the strength of the conference overall.
The question
go ahead.
Yeah, but we're not looking at it as a way to get paid. We're looking at it as a way to build a stronger team and have a stronger strength of schedule, which in turn helps our own RPI or our own net rating, because the way the net rating is constructed, that losing on the road is only negative half point. And if you lose on the road to a power team, that's in many respects better than beating a lower seed. That's why he's not enthused about the Summit League Challenge, because that puts possibly 2 games on his schedule that might be against inferior net rated teams. And therefore, his attitude is he's going to make the schedule even tougher next year.
Well, let me ask you. I'm sorry.
Can I just jump in here?
Yeah, sure.
I firmly think that while it makes sense what Rick is talking about with Mike Davis, that is backwards thinking at its finest. The league, like losing on the road is better than winning is always better. Even if that's the whole thing that these programs and people I read around the league, I read the Detroit board, I read the Wright State board, everybody's like, hey, let's get out of this crap league. I want to go to the A10, I want to go to the MVC. These schools need to invest in the things that will get you to that next level. You need to be investing in better coaching salaries, better practice facilities, better travel budgets. You need to be, having everything operating as a winner, not as we'll go out and get our ass kicked on the road because that will build us for the one bid of the league and be a 14 seed so we can get our ass kicked in the tournament and then the league gets nowhere. I'm sick of that. I'm really sick of that. And Green Bay does it too. We've got 5 bye games on the schedule this year. Sick of it.
Yeah, I've never thought about kind of the non-conference schedule like that. I totally agree, though, with what you're saying. We need to make a name for the conference and kind of show that we're not just here for conference play, just trying to get that one bid.
Oh, I mean, so my question then
so how do you get the second bid? If your strength of schedule is in the bottom third, or if you have 24 wins and your average opponent has a much lower net rating than you. So how do you get in? Raise the second and third place teams to be a better team that gets the higher net rating if you don't play the power team.
Well, that's a good question. I think that's
a system is what I'm saying.
And that's a good question. That's a good question you bring up, and I think that's something that this conference has struggled with, specifically over ever since over the last 4 or 5 seasons, where nobody has while you have the one team that's clearly the favorite, you've had a situation where it's not, where teams are not, have had down years. We've had flat out anchors. What needs that's a good question. What needs to happen in this conference as a whole to be able to get to that point? And like I said, I don't think, and I've said it multiple times, I think this conference is, well, at least it was better off this year than it was last year. Of course, I could be 100% wrong, which is a problem. But what does this conference need to do as a whole to get to that point where they can compete for a second or even a second, at least a second bid? Or are we just at a point where we're at the point of no return?
Let me hop in here.
Yeah.
Rick mentioned Mike Davis not being so hot about the idea of the Summit League challenge. The problem is that the conference overall, everybody plays games that are worse than Summit League games. So really, what this conference is doing, I mean, is Mike Davis playing? Is every game Mike Davis scheduling better?
No.
Better than the potential Summit League games?
Looking at the current schedule, I mean, he's got like SIU Edwardsville in there. I mean, swap it out with a Summit League team. I mean, is it any different? No.
No, in fact, it's worse. SIU Edwardsville is trash. It's a trash program.
I don't even know what conference they're even in. Are they?
They're in the OVC, right?
Oh, yeah, they're in the OVC.
Yes.
Yeah, they're in the OVC.
They're
20 minutes. They're 20 minutes outside of St. Louis. Their arena is like, it's like what the Gentile Center was before the update. Like it's just a glorified high school gym. There's nothing about Edwardsville that is something anybody wants to go to. So naturally, their basketball program has never been shit in Division I.
No. So
coming back around to it, if Mike Davis doesn't want to play the Summit League Challenge because he's afraid of having two bad teams on his schedule, should he be scheduling SIU Edwardsville as well?
The other argument that I don't really understand either is that, the other argument I've had is that, well, why don't you have a Horizon League MAC Challenge? Couple reasons for that. First of all, if you look at every schedule of every Horizon League team, they're playing no less than 2 or 3 MAC teams anyway. I mean,
well, so
that
really, what this is about is it's about putting together a better non-conference schedule for everybody, so that everybody can go out and come into the conference with a better net rating, which when they do that and they're all against each other, that will all lift, the rising tide kind of raises all ships, where we all play a better schedule. The problem is that at our level, or at least the level that we used to be at, a good mid-major, not a great mid-major, but a good mid-major conference, it is hardest to schedule at that spot. The good teams don't want to play you at neutral sites. Sorry, what were you going to say?
This is a financial problem beyond anything else.
Sure.
It's a $300,000 financial problem per team. $100,000 is the going rate for a bye game. You want to get some home games against decent teams. You want to play Murray State, give them $100,000, and they're going to come play the game, just like they play everybody else. It's a financial problem, and then it's also a little bit of a scheduling alliance problem. Like get outside your region and go try to see if the top CSU teams will play or the top Sun Belt teams will play. But it should bother everybody to their core that the MVC doesn't play hardly any games against the Horizon, because they view their league as a way better league than the Horizon. They don't want to play us.
And now they're right.
They are right. But what is it that you have to do? At the end of the day, this is a money problem. Every program needs to be spending at the Wright State level. Wright State, look at their schedule this year. They're going to have a ton of wins. They don't have a great schedule, but they've got a couple of teams in there at the mid-major level that could help move their needle. And they'll probably not be an at-large candidate, but they're going to be probably a top 100 net team without going out on the road and getting their ass whooped 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
I totally agree that it's going to be a financial issue. has to do with, I forget who said it, but he said it was like practice facilities, and then also travel budgets are a big thing. I think it also has to do with being kind of that not a great mid-major, but a good mid-major. You're not going to have those teams that are core teams where the players stay around for all 4 seasons. They're going to be transferring, trying to go to different schools, and then when you're plagued by transfers like Oakland has been the last 2 years, you're basically starting over. You're not going to go.
That wasn't us. You put together a culture of acceptance for kids, a culture that maybe isn't built around just straight up winning basketball games, but is built around being supportive of your players and being really a role player. And those kids are going to stay. Jeter rarely had transfers at UWM, and he was a coach during the transfer epidemic for half of his tenure. So I don't buy this idea that we're automatically going to lose our best players. I think that we lose our great players because we're not doing a good enough job we're not doing a good enough job of making them feel welcome, making them feel like they want to be here and stay here. That's basketball. While the kids aren't getting paid, we have to start transitioning this to be more supportive of the players themselves, and just stop expecting that stop treating the players like we're all Kentuckys of the world and they should be happy to be here and get a scholarship. We need to do more, and that ties into we need better operational budgets. We need better coaching staff salaries. We need to be able to spend money on buy games to get good, better teams to come play us, or we need to be able to be willing, like Davis is doing with Detroit Mercy, we need to be willing to go and play anybody anywhere. So if it's about taking that buy game against Cal and then going out to the West Coast and whipping the shit out of them, or taking a loss that in the long run doesn't hurt us very much, then we should do that. And those kids that play here will enjoy going on the trip and going to the high major place. We need them to get support at the schools. We need to get them to support, on the court. We need to not treat them like they're just, spokes in a wheel. Like we need to be. The reason kids transfer is because they don't feel welcome. They don't feel like they're going to do things better. It's not about making a pro career anymore. It can't be, because in this conference we have in the last 5 to 6, 7 years we've had a bunch of players get into the NBA.
Yeah.
Even end of the bench, it doesn't matter. Since in the last 5, 6, 7 years, as things like the Horizon League Network have flipped into to become ESPN Plus and all that, the scouts will find you in the Horizon League. So it's not I'm going to go play at this high major school because I get better talent to play against. That's not as much of a thing anymore, because the scouts aren't just going to Kentucky games. The scouts can watch the Cleveland State game.
Yeah.
So it's not about talent level alone. We're not doing a good enough job. If you're losing your best players to other schools, it's because your coaching staff and your university are not doing a good enough job creating a support infrastructure for those players to want to stay in the first place.
And I agree with that. And then you build on top of that, there's things that used to be competitive advantages, like Horizon League Network. I know, Jimmy, you love the old Horizon League Network.
Yeah.
Everybody's streaming their games now on the internet, so that's not an advantage for us anymore in the Horizon League. Like, we need the next thing. And, you look at in the MAC, like Bob, you talked about the MAC.
Yeah.
There's only two coaches in the MAC make less than $300,000 per year. Most of those guys are making $400 plus. Some of them are close to $600. John Croce at Illinois is going to be at $650 after this year. Like, the investment from these programs, and that's from Akron, a school that's dying, is spending money on basketball at that rate.
That's true.
Like, we're getting guys in, and we're operating this league like it's a bottom-level league right now. We're resting on our laurels, and you know what? Butler's not walking through that door.
What laurels are we resting on anymore? I mean, Jesus Christ. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Bubba.
Did you listen to the Horizon podcast with Lacrone?
Oh, Jesus Christ! Yes, I listened.
Yes,
to it.
I know you did. You can admit it in public. Everybody.
I said it. I said
I
last
didn't listen
episode.
to it yet.
I will listen. I will listen to the Horizon Roundtable. I will listen to the Reach. Yeah, I will listen. I listened to the first episode. I have not gotten into the second episode. I will get to it eventually, I'm sure. But I did admit that I would listen to it so you guys wouldn't have to. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that platform. I mean, and I actually said it in the episode. It was like we posted our podcast episode about 2 or 3 days before the first episode of the Reaching the Horizon Roam podcast with John Lacrone. I thought for sure they were going to spend a lot more time on, I don't know, fall sports, because that was kind of my thought, that they were going to focus on teams that are currently playing right now that don't get a lot of representation in any medium, let alone podcast. And what did they talk about? They talked about adding Fort Wayne and talked about the goddamn Indianapolis in the tournament as a tournament host again. That was their primary discussion.
Was it like they were making their pitch for why, or like they were trying to make their pitch as to why they didn't go with like NKU, or why they changed
actually,
up and decided to go with Indy?
Actually, he did reveal who the finalists were. It was Indianapolis, it was Fort Wayne, it was Grand Rapids. And then he went into the spiel about, the thought process behind that. Like, great. But this is we're in September right now. And again, he's talking about this, even though I was planning to listen, thinking he was going to be talking about other sports, again, some of which are actually playing right now.
But the
first two episodes have been about The first two episodes have been about basketball.
One of the things that first episode, Lacrone, something that stood out to me is the inference that he had about the league has a tremendous history, and it does. But the problem is, it's fucking dire right now.
Hey, would you like to know and he's been a part of it for 27 years. And you know what part of that history he keeps forgetting about is the fact that in 93, 94, he had to go get, right, like in 92, 93, he had a whole boatload of schools leave on him, and he brought in all these what were the mid-con teams to replace them. I mean, he started this whole thing to begin with.
But that's my point. It's like I felt like he's resting on that. Like, hey, the league's been to the Final Four twice, and we've won tournament games. None of that's happened. Like, we need to now invest in these programs. Stop playing road games on for money, and invest in your program at the school level. Figure it out. Raise the money. Get it somehow.
I don't think
because we gotta
stop.
Or don't play
for money.
You can't play. You can't play as many of them.
Play for money against teams that you can beat. Rutgers gives money to teams that will beat them.
Yeah. But that's not his focus, by the way. That was never his focus. I mean, his focus forever and ever and ever has been, quote-unquote, on the student athletes, even though we know money is involved all over the place. But that's been the conference's overriding narrative forever and ever and ever has been on student athletes. Well, if that's the case, fine.
That's just lip service.
Of course it is. I mean, and if that's the case, fine. But if that was the case, then why the hell are we still talking about a tournament site and adding a new school when, again, you could be talking about student athletes who are currently in the middle of their volleyball season or their men's and women's soccer seasons or something like that that's actually going on, as opposed to regurgitating things that happened a month ago.
I'll say this. I did not expect that on this podcast that's centered on basketball that somebody be complaining that the official conference podcast isn't talking about the little
That's
sports.
What they pitched it as. That is what they pitched it as. And
then
within 5 minutes, Justin Kinder says, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about men's and women's basketball.
Wright State men's and women's basketball, for that matter.
I mean, the first two. Yeah, I mean, I thought my whole thought process on that was, okay, they're going to talk about these things that not anybody is talking about, and that's fine. But their first two episodes were talking about things we talk about on this podcast. So it's like, in a much more sanitized version, I might add. So it's like, what the hell is the point? Just listen to
Bob,
this. If that's the case, just listen to this podcast. Jesus. we're way more entertaining anyway. At least we think we are.
You know, one thing that it came up on that podcast and come up many times, like the student athlete experience.
Yeah.
And that's what surprised me, that the Horizon League tournament format this year
Yeah.
is it's like the CIT. You call it the whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
The season ends on a Saturday, the 29th of February.
Uh-huh.
And on Tuesday, the 3rd of March, you are going to play, 4 teams are going to play road games, but they're not going to know necessarily where they play
Yeah.
until Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to leave on Monday, probably to go play those games.
Yep.
Then if they win on the road, they're not going to know where they're going to play, and they're going to play on Thursday. And then if they win any of those games, they're going to play on Monday and Tuesday in Indianapolis. Like, if you conceivably are going to be out of school for a week doing this, and then you get the right to be out of school again for the NCAA tournament or the CIT or CBI or NIT or whatever you get in, like, I can't understand how they think this format with whack-a-mole play wherever we're going to play
I'll
on
say
2 days'
this.
notice is going to work
I'll say this
for student-athlete
I'm,
experience.
I'll say this. I'm going to be in Indy for the conference tournament because it's a Monday, Tuesday thing. That's more because I'm a car salesman. I can't be away on Saturdays. Like, that's my day. But what I'll say is that, you know, this that schedule has as much to do with ESPN dictating where, you know, that we have to have our conference title game on Tuesday night.
And by the way, Lacrone copped to that too. By the way, he mentioned. I mean, the television schedule itself. He that was a part of that first step. He mentioned. He said flat out that was a factor.
Well, we know it's a part. It's been in.
I mean, but again, it's not. And again, it's not new things that we know. I mean, it's like, okay.
It's in their
but
ESPN
ESPN
contract with ESPN.
ESPN doesn't care if those other games are played on Tuesday and Thursday. In fact, it'd be cheaper for them to play them all Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at one site with one crew, with one production crew.
Yeah.
Those first 2 round games, the first 2 rounds, that is the ultimate in not a student athlete experience, in my opinion.
Are you talking just the day of the week it's on, or are you talking the having it at the higher seat and then down the
I'm saying that they're going to leave. If they're playing Tuesday, they're going to be out of school Monday afternoon, all day Tuesday, coming back sometime on Wednesday, or going right to the Thursday game, wherever that might be, and they're not going to know until after they win on Tuesday. And then after they win, they're going to leave on Sunday to go play or be in Indianapolis by Sunday to do shoot-around, playing Monday. If they win, they're going to play on Tuesday, coming home on Wednesday. They're going to be out of school, but, you know, some of these teams are going to be not in school or in class for the better part of a week.
Some of those teams are going to go back Tuesday night. Like, I would not be surprised to see like if Milwaukee had won, we'd like the title. We'd be coming back Tuesday night, like after the game. Like, they wouldn't stick around for Wednesday, but they'd also get back at 2 a.m.
True.
I would tell you,
kids wouldn't even get there, so they probably wouldn't even go to class Wednesday morning.
I would say, Jimmy, I know, like at the Motor City Madness, the champions and the losers were staying on Tuesday night, and then because most of the schools were busing because they didn't know when they're going to be going home.
Right.
To Detroit, they would send a bus on an empty leg to then drive them back home whenever it is that they lost. Most of those teams that were losing were leaving in the morning. They weren't driving home at 10 o'clock at night.
Comes back to operating budgets, because if you charter a plane, you can charter it for when you want to leave.
Yeah. So, I mean, that actually brings me up to the conference schedule, which they did finally release, which is awesome, I guess. And that's the other thing. I thought for sure they were going to talk about the conference schedule in the first episode. They waited till the second episode to talk about it. But I'm glad they at least got around to talking about it. I didn't get to that episode yet, so I'm not going to comment on that second episode. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the conference schedule for us in this particular venue. The conference schedule starts at the end of December. I guess my question, I mean, and Jimmy and I have had this conversation about the placement of that first set of games in the conference schedule, how it used to be long ago. And it wasn't even that long ago where the Horizon
You're talking about the Horizon League played the first weekend of conference games before everybody else did.
Yeah, what was it?
Yeah.
I think it was like the first weekend of December.
Yes.
And they had those first games, and then about a month later they had the conference schedule. It just seems to me, but they haven't done that in a while, and now because the schedule itself has moved up from the second week in November to the first week in November, all those first week conference games are now at the end of the year, including, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Oakland and Detroit are playing that first set of their games at the end of December, correct? And they're doing that so they're doing that right during winter break.
Yeah, so that's the kind of the problem I've had the last couple of years with this schedule is look at Detroit Mercy, who is our quote-unquote rival because we kill them every year, but they're playing that over winter break. Now, we'll still have a good fan turnout, and we did last year due to the fact that the schools are so close to each other, but it does hurt student attendance that it is happening over winter break.
You wouldn't think it wouldn't have as much of a thing because students are... There's such a high amount of students are commuters at Oakland.
There is, yeah, and like I said, it didn't kill us, but you would definitely see a higher student turnout if it wasn't over winter break. Because we still do have a lot of students living on campus. I believe it's over 7,000 if I'm remembering correctly.
I guess I got a couple of questions. If you're gonna do that with Oakland and Detroit Mercy, where you're gonna get fans, but you put that first game right in the middle of winter break. If you're gonna do that, why didn't you just do like a game that nobody's gonna show up to, like UIC at IUPUI or something? I mean, but more to the point, what is stopping this conference from doing what they used to do, which is having that like distinction of having the first conference games played in that first weekend of December? When not only are you going to be one of the first conferences to have games, you're also going to have students still on campus at that point in time. So I don't understand the whole thought process behind that. I mean, and maybe it's because I don't know. Maybe it's because they finally got around. Are there finals going on? I mean, I don't know what's up.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
On two things about that. I will give credit to the Reaching the Horizon podcast episode 2. The lady, Julie Rowe, something or other, did a really great job explaining how the schedule works and how they block the times for ESPN.
Yeah.
It would give you a lot of good insight. I will give them some props. Hate doing it, but I have to. And then the other thing too, remember that
again. This is my problem. Totally ignorant. Didn't listen to that second episode. I'm going to hell now.
No, but the one thing I'll tell you that's a little bit different back in the day when we used to play that first conference game in early December. Mm-hmm. That was also coinciding with the bracket buster time period where a weekend in March was taken out. So getting the conference schedule in as it sits today, like they're starting, Green Bay starting on Friday or Saturday, December 28th. We're playing at Wright State first conference game, and we're going nonstop every weekend through February 29th. So I feel like part of that way before was because they had a lost weekend. I could be wrong on that, but that seems.
My other thing too is I know that we're starting our conference schedule, but at the end of the year, at the end of December. But I don't know how many other schools are doing that, starting at the end of the year, because and I allude to the fact that, and I love this. Ohio State is playing West Virginia at Quicken Loans Arena or the Rock House or whatever the hell they're calling it now. They changed the name of it again. I don't care what it is. And they're doing that on December 29th. And there's a second game, and I can't remember who the hell it is. Phil, do you remember who's playing that second game at the Rock House or whatever the hell they're calling it now?
Oh man, it's an A10 school.
Yeah.
Isn't it Marshall and Ohio?
It's Duquesne.
Duquesne. Okay.
Yeah, they're Marshall.
Okay. So, all right. So yeah. So those. And that's at the end of the year, right when. So obviously those four conferences that are being represented in that game didn't start their conference schedules at that point in time. So. I don't know. It just seems to me that I get the argument that you're trying to make up for a lost weekend. At the same time, I mean you're trying to get. The one thing I will say though, and I thank God they didn't do it this time. No, there were no no basketball games on that Saturday. On Saturday, the last week of the NFL season. Thank God, because they did that last year, and I'm sure that went real well.
One thing I can say from a Green Bay perspective, like for our home games this year, I really think, and I'm looking at the whole league schedule, I think we're due for an uptick in attendance around the league. Green Bay's playing 12 of their 18 games on a Friday night, Saturday, or Sunday afternoon. We're only playing over the course of the season one Monday game at home, one Tuesday game, one Wednesday, and 2 Thursdays. I just think that getting those games at home is going to be on the weekends is going to help, and I think that's going around the league. And one other thing I want to clarify for you, Big Ten conference play starts on Friday, December 6th this year. They are doing, because they have the extra games this year, they went to 20. They're playing a league game a week earlier.
So they're doing it. Why can't we? Come on. No, I'm not saying we're definitely not the Big Ten. What are we? We're kidding ourselves. So that was my kind of bugaboo about that, and like I said, I haven't gotten around to listening to that. I'm like an episode behind on that, on the Reaching the Horizon podcast. So did they mention what they're talking about the next couple episodes? I don't know. I'm sure. Now, by the way, I must mention the fact that by the time this comes out, I will have already listened to it. But I'm telling everybody, as of this recording, I am ignorant and I'm a dumbass and didn't listen to it. And I've broken my promise to all of you, and I apologize profusely. So,
I mean, the high level of it, like with Oakland, Detroit, and Youngstown are the only schools in the league that control their buildings all the time. Everybody else is sharing. I think of Jimmy at UWM Panther Arena. You're sharing with soccer, hockey. Green Bay shares.
But we are the first. We are the
Center isn't sharing with anybody.
Deal.
Well, that's because nothing's getting booked there. But they do not. But, they're trying to book other things there.
But theoretically, the Wolstein Center, CSU controls what's going on at the Wolstein Center. Theoretically. Also, theoretically, men came from monkeys, so, I mean, there you go.
Back to attendance. I think we're due for an overall attendance boost in the league. I think Oakland's going to have a great attendance again this year. And also our student section. I believe our student section is the strongest in the year each year, and I believe we're going to bring it again this year.
So that's it. And I'm glad you brought that up, too, because I know attendance has been an issue for a lot of schools, one of them being IUPUI. Shocking no one. One of them being Cleveland State, also shocking no one. As far as all the other schools, I mean, as far as attendance, as attendance is concerned, is it a matter? Are you going to see a little bit of an uptick? I know Chris said yes, they did, and I think probably in the case of Cleveland State, they can't go anywhere but up. I'm saying there's nowhere to go but up.
Well, I think our attendance will be up again. We were up 55% over prior year, and we averaged almost the same for a Horizon League game as UIC did, and UIC has 10 times the enrollment that we do.
That's true.
When Chris out at Oakland says he has 7,000 students living on campus there, we have 800. And if every full-time undergrad at our school appeared at a game, that would be 2,300 people. So keep that in mind when you talk about us in attendance, that we have to go outside of our core student body in order to make Callahan half full. So I think you'll see us doing a little bit better this year. Because of Antoine Davis and because of other things that we're doing to market. In terms of the Horizon League podcast that Lacrone did, the thing I took out of it as a Detroit Mercy fan was that if we were not already in the league by our own inertia, that he would not want us in the league, because he talked about and about all the large public universities where all the building and growth are going on around the urban areas, and then out of the side of his mouth, it's like, oh yeah, little Detroit is doing okay, but little Detroit is embarking on a significant upgrade to the facilities that just started this year, and we are embarking on a $10 million upgrade to everything from Callahan to a separate practice facility to a more modern soccer and lacrosse field and everything. And now that the school is financially solvent again and we're operating at break even, we don't have the luxury of going to the taxpayers of any state or even having having access to bond markets to build things that other schools do. But I'm just letting you know that the Wright State guy was talking about, why don't you upgrade your facilities? Well, it's coming, and it's coming on a Butler level from us between now and 2024, and you will see marked changes on campus.
While at Milwaukee, Jimmy, you want to throw that in there?
Sounds to me like Detroit Mercy's gonna get good enough to get out of the conference
before anybody else.
Well, I mean, that's the last private school.
That's true.
And they've been here longer than everybody else. And the fellow Jesuits at Loyola are gone. Fellow private schools at Butler are gone. Valpo is here for a hot minute. They're gone. It's been a long time since LaSalle and Duquesne used to not be a non-conference game. These schools are long gone. Marquette and Notre Dame are long gone. So with Milwaukee, Cleveland State, all these schools are public except one.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see Detroit leave.
Hey, Jimmy.
Project for later.
I still think the MAAC is a hell of a place to gun for, but who knows? Maybe they can back into the A10 somehow.
I don't know. We may stay. I'm just saying. The school is just started on a 3 to 4 year plan of investing capital into the athletic program, and not just into men's basketball.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would say one of the things, you look at the history of the league, 14 schools have left the league. 13 of them were private. One's public. The one that was public was NIU. They let their play higher level football.
Yeah,
I think it's great that Detroit's investing in their facilities, because their facilities are on the bottom tier right now. But something that's good for any team that wants to leave the league going forward, they're going to need to invest capital in their operating budget just as much as their facilities.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of these schools like Detroit, if they're spending a good amount in basketball, but to get to a Missouri Valley or Atlantic 10, these leagues aren't going to take in the school that has the lowest attendance and the lowest operating budget. Like, everybody in this league's got to get their game going. Everybody in this league needs to be spending $3+ million on men's basketball if they want the league to go anywhere, and if they want to go anywhere.
Yeah. Wow, that's a hell of a way to end the show. Ways of getting out of the conference. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this episode up, gentlemen. I appreciate your time to coming on the podcast. It was a great conversation by everyone.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And as always, you can find episodes of the Horizon Roundtable on horizonroundtable.com. Got to make sure I keep remembering that's our freaking site, because apparently I can't ever remember it, even though I say it 5,000 times a day. You can also find the episodes of the podcast on wherever you can find podcasts, as well as your your Amazon or Google devices. And gentlemen, thank you thanks for coming in again, and thank you all for listening.
Awesome. Go Oakland.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good one, guys. Nice talking and chatting with all you guys.
There you go.
Thank you.